Let's say you get hired as a test engineer at a web development company. Every day you have to test various functions of a website. Doing so requires a lot of manual and repetitive work. You have to launch your browser, direct it to the address of your website, click on a few links here and there, perhaps fill out a form, and repeat all these with different values several times a day. This is very time consuming and it doesn't scale. So that's where Selenium comes in the picture. With Selenium, we can automate our browser. So we can write a bunch of scripts to test various functions of a website. Here's an example. Let's say we want to test the login functionality of github.com. So we'll have to launch our browser, head over to github.com, click on the signing link, then fill out this form, and finally, click on this avatar and check to see if our username is displayed here or not. If not, that means there is something wrong with the login functionality. So this is an example of automated testing. Now let me show you how to do this with Python and Selenium. So here in a brand new project called PySelenium, on the terminal, let's run pip-env install Selenium. Next, we need a driver. A driver is a piece of software to automate a specific browser. For all these popular browsers like Chrome, Firefox, and so on, we have a web driver that we need to manually download. So head over to pypi.org and search for Selenium. Here it is. Now on this page, if you scroll down, under drivers, you can see this table. So here are the drivers for Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Safari. In this demo, I'm going to automate Chrome. So let me show you how to install Chrome driver. Let's go here. Now you can see the latest release is Chrome driver version 2.44. Let's click this. Here in this directory, you can see the Chrome driver for various operating systems. I use a Mac, so I'm going to download this. Here we get a zip file. Let's extract it here. So we get an executable called Chrome driver. We need to put this somewhere in the path. If you're on Windows, you need to put this in the Windows folder on C drive. If you're on Mac or Linux, you need to copy it to your local bin directory. So here on a terminal, we can run copy Chrome driver to /user/local/bin. That's it. Now back to VS Code. First, we need to change our virtual environment to PySelenium. Beautiful. Now on the top, from the Selenium module, we need to import the WebDriver module. In this module, we have classes that represent all the popular browsers like Chrome, Firefox, and so on. So to automate Chrome, we need to create an instance of the Chrome class. So WebDriver.Chrome, this is actually a class, but VS Code IntelliSense shows it as a module. So don't worry about that. Let's create an instance of Chrome. And this returns a browser object. Now, let's call browser.get and head over to https://github.com. Save the changes and run this program. So this opened a new instance of the Chrome browser. And as you can see, we are on github.com. Beautiful. Next, we need to click on this signing link. So we need to tell Selenium to find this element and click it. Now, when it comes to finding elements, we have a few different options. We can find elements by their ID, class, name, and tag. So let's right-click this element and inspect it. So here's our signing link. We have an anchor with these classes. None of these classes uniquely identify this link because we have header menu -link, which can be reused somewhere else. We also have no underline as well as MR3. So these are pretty generic classes, so we cannot find this element using its class. Also, as you can see here, we don't have the ID attribute. So in this particular case, the only way to find this element is by its text. Let me show you how to do that. So back in VS Code, let's call browser.findElement by link text. So our link text is sign in. Make sure to spell this exactly as you see on a web page. In this case, if we use a lowercase s, this method is going to raise an exception telling us that there is no element with this link text. So sign in. Now this returns a web element. We can get that and store it in a variable like sign in link. Now to click this, we can simply call the click method. So signin.click. Save the changes, run the program again. Okay, we're heading over to GitHub, and now we are on the sign-in page. Beautiful. The next step is to fill out this form. We're going to follow the same approach. So we inspect this element, right-click, and go to inspect. All right, here's our input field. As you can see here, we have an ID, and this uniquely identifies this element on our web page. So this time, we can find this element by its ID. The ID is login field. So I'm going to copy this. Now back in VS Code, let's call browser.find element by ID. We pass the ID here. This time we get the username box. Okay. Now we want to fill this out. So here we have a method called sendKeys that simulates a user typing in a text box. So username box.sendKeys. I'm going to type this username ninjacoder22. Now similarly, we need to fill out the password field. So here's our password field. And as you can see, the ID of this field is password. So back in VS Code, I'm going to duplicate these two lines and change this to password box. Let's change the ID to password. And also on line 12, let's change this to password box. And the password I'm going to pass here is today is Monday 1. Don't try this because I'm going to change this after recording this lecture. But you can try it with your own user and password. So we filled out the form. Now we need to submit it. That is pretty easy. So we call passwordbox.submit. Save the changes. Let's run the program one more time. Okay, we're going to GitHub. We logged in and here we are. So this is my avatar. You saw that happen pretty quickly. No human can do it that fast. Now finally, to ensure that this login function worked properly, we want to make an assertion. So when we click on this avatar, we see our username displayed here. So here we can make an assertion that ninjacoder22 is rendered in the HTML of this web page. Here's one way. So let me show you. Back in VS Code. So this browser object has an attribute called page source. Again, VS Code is making a mistake here. It's displaying this as a function, but it's an attribute. And this returns the HTML content of this web page. Now in Python, we have this statement called assert. And with this, we can verify something. For example, we want to verify that ninjacoder22 is in this string. So page source returns a string that is the HTML content of this web page. Now, if we do have ninjacoder22 here, our program will continue execution without any problems. Otherwise, if we don't have this text in our HTML, this is going to throw an exception. So to simulate that, let me change 22 to 23. Obviously, we don't have this. So let's run the program and see what happens. So we're going to log in one more time. Beautiful. Now back in VS Code here on the terminal, you can see we have an assertion error. So we asserted that ninjacoder23 is in the HTML of this web page, and that assertion failed. However, if we change that to ninjacoder22 and run the program again, this time we don't have any exceptions on the terminal. So this is the idea behind assertions and automated testing. Now this assertion is kind of general. Let me show you a more specific assertion. Back to github.com, when we click on this avatar, we see this drop-down box. Let's right-click on this element and inspect it. Okay, here's our label. It's inside of a strong tag, and this strong tag is part of this anchor, which is part of this list item. To do a more specific assertion, we can find this anchor, look at its inner HTML, and ensure that here we have ninjacoder22. This is more specific than searching for ninjacoder22 in the entire HTML, right? So look at our anchor. Here we have this class user profile link. So we can find this element using its class. So browser.find element by class user profile link. So let's store that in profile link. Now we need to get the inner HTML of this link. So we call profile link.get attribute. The attribute name is inner HTML. Now we get the result and store it in link label. Finally, we can assert that Ninja Coder 22 is in link label. So that was the basics of using Selenium to automate our browser. Now, there are more advanced topics about automated testing with Selenium that goes beyond the scope of this course. So if you want to learn more, search for Python Selenium. On this page, selenium-python.readthedocs.io, you can read about these advanced scenarios. The two sections that I highly encourage you to read about are weights and page objects. This is a pattern that helps you organize your code in a reusable fashion and is extremely important when testing a real application with tens or hundreds of functions. You don't want to write all your test code in a linear fashion like this. You want to organize it into classes with methods that you can reuse in many different scenarios. Now, one last thing before we finish this lecture. Whenever you're done with your browser object, you need to call the quit method. Otherwise, you will end up with so many open browser windows. So down the bottom, we call browser.quit.